Today, I will be presenting my research that I conducted originally for my master thesis, also here at the Freie Universität Berlin. And it was a research that was centered on the meaning of the European identity. But before we start, I would like to say a few words about me. I originally come from Poland. That's why my research interests are especially focused on the Eastern European countries. Yes, in Poland, I was studying for 5 years in Warsaw at the University of Warsaw. First, it was bachelor in political sciences, and then it was master in sociology. And then in 2022, I moved to Germany, to Berlin, and I started here yet a second master studies, and it was sociology of European societies at FU Berlin. And I chose this particular program because I got this interest in the European integration. And right now I work at FU as a doctoral researcher in Institute of Sociology in the research group of macro sociology. And as Leo said, my research interests are focused on the identity, but also transnationalism, European integration, European identity. And also what is interesting for me is queer theory. About my MAXQDA experience, I was using it first in my master thesis in Warsaw. It was also about Europeans. And there I conducted interviews with people who are identifying themselves as Europeans. And then my second master thesis that I will be presenting here, it was a mixed method study on defining European identity. But my biggest experience with MAXQDA for sure I gained with Verdi itself. So when I was working in the community relations team. So even that I am an ex-worker, I can still say that it's a little bit different community research session because it's from a different type of community to community, I think. So, okay. So the plan for today is that I will introduce the topic first, and then I will explain the method I used, and then it was a mixed method study, but I will focus on the qualitative part of the study because that's the part I used MAXQDA in, and then I will go into conclusions, and then it will be part for a Q&A session. So my topic was about European identity, and generally in research, but also in the discourse, there is this general perspective that Europe equals the EU. Every time we are talking about Europe, in the back of our head, we have this thought about the EU. So actually, the whole idea EU was is put into this box of the European Union. And because of that, when we are thinking about the European integration, we are thinking about this motor of development of European identity, because we are thinking that if Europe is the EU, then the European identity actually is something that is focused not on the Europe as something bigger, more abstract, but about the EU itself. And then because of that, when we are thinking about someone who is evaluating the EU in a positive way, we are thinking that it's probably this person who is a stronger, who has a stronger European identity than as someone who says that actually no, the EU is not something that has a that I think it's a positive, but rather negative. So that's the general idea, but The research is showing something else. And it shows that the countries that are actually leaders of the European integration and the countries that are in this core of European Union, the countries that, for example, started the European integration process, don't have the strongest sense of European identity among the citizens. Actually, for example, when we look at Germany or France, France is really falling behind with the percentage of people who are declaring themselves as European. It's one of the lowest percentages in the EU, and Germany is situating themselves in the middle. But actually, it's Poland and Hungary, so it's countries with a very strong, dominant Eurosceptical parties, and both of those countries are also latecomers to the EU because they joined in 2004. Those are the countries where more people declare themselves as European, and it's most of the people too, because it's of course those numbers vary between studies, but it's around 70%. So if we have this strong core of Euroscepticism and still a very big percentage of people who are Europeans, maybe there are diverse sources of the European identity, and actually the European identity is not perceived as something connected to the European Union itself, or maybe it's not something that comes from the positive evaluation of the European identity. So that I was curious about that, and then I found this study of Polish sociologists, and it's Konieczna, Martin, and Sawicka, their study from 2019, and they analyzed the Polish discourse about Europe, and they distincted three different narratives that can lead to the identification with the European, with Europe. So, first of these discourses is economic. So people who thinking about Europe in this way are focusing on the European Union, and they are thinking that the European Union is good and important because it's a garant of our economic prosperity. And then we have the second group, which is culture, and it's pro-integrationism. So it means that they perceive Europe in this value-oriented way with a positive evaluation of the EU. And in this sense, the EU, they are seeing EU as a peaceful space for cultural diversity, freedom, and human rights. So those are the people who are very rooted in this non-economic way of perceiving the EU. And then finally, we have this cultural way of identification, but it's Eurosceptical. So they are also saying that Europe is something that is about values, but they are critical toward the EU. So they are saying that the EU actually is destroying those traditional European values that are based on Christianity and institutions of the nation state. So when they are confirming existence of this common Europe, they are rejecting the way of thinking where actually those European countries should integrate. And all of those three types can bring sense of European identity in the individual. So people who are thinking on Europe in those diverse ways, all of them have a certain type of European identity. But that was about Poland, and my study aimed to see whether those diverse narratives on the European Union exist in political discourses in other countries than Poland, and whether people perceive themselves, who perceive themselves as Europeans, are mirroring those narratives. So I conducted a study that was a mixed method, and in quantitative part, I was doing research on individuals using the Eurobarometer database, where I use dependent variable as a sense of European identity. And then for independent values, independent variable, I took a question where was asked about the meaning of the EU, and there were diverse items on the meaning of the EU. I grouped them. I made them into clusters that are about the types of European identity that were created by the Polish sociologists. And then in the qualitative part, I also used this scheme from the quantitative part, but I checked existence of those three different narratives, not on the individuals, but in political programs of leading parties from 6 European countries. So it's Germany, France, Spain, Greece, Poland, Hungary, and I use manifesto project database, where you can find all of the political programs of many political parties from many countries, and I analyzed those political manifestos in terms of existence of those types of the European discourse. After I would, as I told you, after I will be talking about the qualitative part here. So I will focus on this political parties discourse. So after the qualitative part, I wanted to know actually how political parties are constructing their narratives on the European Union and Europe, and if those narratives differ between European countries and families of parties. What kind of aspects of European identity are included in those discourses? What are the most popular perspectives on the European integration presented by political parties, and whether those discourses that were recognized by those Polish sociologists are to be found in other European countries on the level of political agents. I created, because this study of Polish sociologists was very Poland specific, and it included elements that are typical for Polish history, for Polish political culture. So it would be very hard actually to look one-on-one on the elements that are appearing in the Polish discourse on Europe. So I needed to create 3 more general schemes that could be found in all of those countries. So first was the economic, and it included items like economic prosperity, social protection, stronger say in the world, and Euro. And then the second one was Eurosceptical. And it was unemployment, waste of money, loss of the identity, bureaucracy, weak border control, more crime, and then culture with this pro-integrationist element in it, so belonging. And it was peace, democracy, freedom to travel, and cultural diversity. And those items are coming from this question on the meaning of meaning of the European Union, which was asked in the Eurobarometer database. So I took those items from the quantitative study, and I wanted to look for the same elements in a qualitative text. So here is my sample on this screenshot. You can see all of those countries, the countries that I picked, and all of the parties that are in those countries, and they are in the national parliaments. And you can also see the families that they belong to. So I wanted also to see if actually there are some similarities between parties who, in theory, have the same profile. And those manifestos are coming from the years 2017, 2019, because they were the closest ones existing to the quantitative database that I was using, so to the Eurobarometer. And there are parties. I picked parties from national parliament, and I picked manifestos also that were produced for the national elections, because it's obvious that for the European elections, the program will be focused on Europe. I wanted to see how actually important is also the aspect of Europe, even if it's a national elections. So I thought it would give me a better overview of the importance of the whole discourse. Okay, so now I have those political parties and a lot of political manifestos, and I could start coding. So first, of course, I uploaded everything to MAXQDA. I created a system of documents. I was also working on some sets of documents. And I started coding. So in the first round, I was using feature text search and autocode because I had really a lot of documents and it was really a lot of pages. So I thought that I cannot read everything. So I have to just see where are the paragraphs that are really important for me. So I use this feature, and I was searching for text that was about the keywords that I picked, and the keywords were Europe, European Union, the EU, Eurozone, European, and Union. And then I had to translate the keyword to each national language. So basically, when I was doing this round of coding, I was coding each document separately, and to be able to code the hits with 3 codes. First code was the keyword, and then the second code was the name of the country, and then it was a political family of the party. So here on the image 1, you can see actually the example of the segment that was coded after the first round, and it's a passage from the Polish Law and Justice manifesto. And then in the second round of coding, first of all, I disqualified some segments, and I was doing that because sometimes a wrong keyword was assigned because of the similarities of the translations. Sometimes the keyword was incorrectly assigned. Some segments were not on topic because, for example, when I was coding automatically with the word union, it was often referring to the other type of union, the European Union. For example, it was happening regularly in Germany in CDU, which is a party that includes union in its name. Or, for example, for item euro, the word euro was not used in the context of the currency, but in the context of amount of money. So it was also something that did not lie in the scope of my interest in this case. And then I picked in the text and search feature, I picked that the whole paragraph will be coded at the same time, but sometimes 2 consecutive paragraphs were covered by the same topic. And then I just merged those coded segments into one. And then at the end of this round of coding, I was assigning thematic codes to it. So for example, about the general topic of a segment, so like economy, ecology, education, geographical distinctions, because sometimes it's not only that parties were talking about Europe, but for example, they were specifically talking about Eastern Europe or Western Europe. And then I created codes for meaning of the EU. So for example, when it was presented as civilization or like unequal structure, funds, and then codes that were positioning the country in Europe and the EU. So for example, codes that were referring to the fact that we are better than Europe or we are worse than Europe. There was this big problem, it is the language barrier, because I had texts in 6 different languages and I speak only 2 of them, which is Polish and German. And German is also not a language that I'm totally fluent in. So it was also a little bit problematic for me to code in German too. So then, thankfully, AI Assist appeared and it really helped me. And almost the whole second round of coding I was doing with a use of AI Assist in MAXQDA. And I was using 2 features in AI Assist. First was summarize selected text, and the second one was paraphrase a selected text. So normally I was using only option summarize, but sometimes the segments, the paragraphs were super short, and summarize is not available for very short passages of text. So then I was using paraphrase selected text option. And it was awesome because it occurred that AI Assist is running in many languages, but also that actually it can have a function of a not very direct, indirect translator. So basically, I could pick a text in any language and then pick that a summary will be done in English, which helped me to understand what is the meaning of this fragment. So AI Assist was my best friend at the time. So here at the screenshot in the right side of the slide, you can actually see in which languages AI Assist can produce a summary. There are, I think, 2 or 3 more, but they did not fit into my screenshot. Okay, and here are the examples of the comments that the paraphrases and the summaries that were created by AI Assist. So we can see that for the paraphrase, so it's in the left up corner, the paraphrases are very short and they are about very short passages of text, so it makes totally sense. And then in 2 summarizes, we have one short and one long summary. And actually, it is great that AI Assist is creating here very adequate summarizes, because it's not losing, during the process a lot of content, but it's actually creating a longer summaries when the text that has to be summarized is longer. So here are the few examples of the segments that were summarized with AI or paraphrased with AI. So you can actually have an evidence here that it converts text from different languages to English. So we have Greek here. We have Spanish, we have French, and we have German. So you can see that it's working in those different languages. And this option allowed me to assign the thematic codes to it, so I could see actually what the text is about, and I was coding that thematically. And when I was able also to decide how detailed, how long summary I wanted to get. So as you can see on 3 screenshots here, you can pick between short, medium, and long. And it was actually very useful when I was not sure if I understand the content correctly, or I had this feeling that maybe something more is hidden there. And if I was still confused, I asked AI Assist to create a summary once again, because the wording changes every time a little bit. So it also helped. And then when I was really unsure, I was translating the whole segment in an online translator, but it was very rare cases. And then also you can have an option to have bullet points in your AI summary. And it really helped me to speed up the process, because I had more than 1,100 unique segments to code. So it was really easy to look at the bullet points and then assign the codes to it. And altogether, I created 447 AI assist generated summaries and a lot of paraphrases. And then in the first round of coding, I was assigning the discourse code. So it was belonging, ambivalent, or Eurosceptical, and there was a possibility to have more than one in the same code segments. So in the analysis later, I wanted to use I wanted not only to analyze text, but I also wanted to have this comparison between different parties and different political programs. So I was using visual tools offered by MAXQDA, and I was using, among others, Code Matrix Browser, Document Portrait, and Document Map. And it helped me to a little bit have this quantitative analysis on the qualitative text. So about Document Portrait. So here you can see actually all of the documents that I coded, and with different colors. With yellow, you have this belonging, positive, value-oriented narrative. Blue is this economic one, ambivalent, and then brown is Eurosceptical. And as you can see, blue is very dominant, and it's the most popular type of discourse on the European Union. And then we have this yellow color appearing from time to time, but it's not really very strong. It's the strongest in Germany, which shows that it's German parties that are really trying to put the European Union around values. And then in a few cases, we have this very strong brown Eurosceptical documents, where we can see that actually if a party is Eurosceptical, it rather is Eurosceptical along the way, and it's focusing mostly on the critique of the European Union, and it's rather not showing any bright sides of it. So when I use Document Map, I was able to cluster all of the documents, so I can see how similar or how different they are from each other in terms of the coded segments. So as we can see, actually, most of them are very similar, and they are focusing on the same stuff. We have only a few outliers, and it's Die Grüne, Law and Justice, and the AfD. when we are looking at the main discourses and we are looking at the those items itself, it looks a little bit more diverse, but still most of those parties are in one group. So here also in the code matrix browser, we can see which items were the most popular. So in this group of belonging, parties were mostly focusing on democracy and peace that are brought by the European integration, also about the cultural diversity, but freedom to travel was actually not very important. And for Eurosceptical items, it was mostly about loss of cultural identity and waste of money. And then when there was this economic discourse, it was mostly about economic prosperity and social protection. And here we can also see actually how parties are presenting and like positioning their countries in it. And we can see that actually, if we are talking about and this economic discourse, what is often underlined is that actually our country is worse than Europe, which is building this position that we need European Union because we are falling behind without it. So it's this factor of the development that is brought by the political parties when they are talking about the European Union. So conclusion. There are those different types of narratives on the European European discourse and the European integration. They exist and they are mirrored, presented by political parties, but because the strength of those discourses vary a lot, and the ambivalent, this economic discourse is the strongest there. And when I was looking also at the items on European identity itself, they are not existing in manifestos. European identity was mentioned only 14 times on the scope of all documents, and 8 times it was coded with the belonging discourse, 5 times with Eurosceptical, and 3 with ambivalent, which means that the core of the identification is not constructed by the political parties, and it's coming from other sources. And also that political parties do not have European identity in their agenda. So if actually there is this motor of European identity for European identity, it's not coming from the political parties, but has to be searched somewhere else. And I was looking for that in the quantitative part, so we unfortunately cannot talk about it here today because we don't have space for that. And at the end, that the EU is presented mostly on the economic level, which is not a good ground for identity development because of its indirect, unambiguous character. And yes, that's it, I think. And if you have any questions, now I'm ready to answer them.